This summer, I decided I wanted to challenge myself. I absolutely love my current camera kit, but what I find myself running into is with expensive video and photography equipment, whenever you go to the beach or an outside place or somewhere where the conditions aren't ideal, you start to get a little antsy, and when you should be focusing on what you're creating, you're focusing on how do I keep my expensive piece of technology safe. So what I wanted was something that would give me a good, reliable image, would give me at least 1080 HD, and would allow me to drop that footage in along my Sony setup without me like having to just see the immediate quality hack. And yes, I know you're probably thinking, well dude, use your phone. But look, my phone is also a very important tool to me, and it's got a lot of important sensitive information on it. And when I'm at the beach and I'm shooting in not ideal conditions, losing the iPhone would also be a disaster. So my wish list was image quality, good punchy color, and it's under $500. So you know, a myth. My first try was this camera. I loved that camera. It is a quality product, but when it comes to durability, it wasn't really checking the box I needed to check, so I decided to pick up this guy. And that is the Canon 5D Mark II. This camera was released in 2008 and I believe available to the public in 2009. And this camera changed the world of consumer and prosumer video. This was the first prosumer and public available DSLR that could shoot 1080 HD video, high quality video, video that looked awesome. And since it happens to be a DSLR in 2023, mirrorless dominates the market. DSLR glass is available left and right, and you can get quality options for this camera, just like what I've got on it right now. This is one of Canon's OG L lenses, the 35mm f1.4 with that beautiful, gorgeous Canon red ring, indicating that you've got one of their highest quality lenses. This is the second time I've owned this lens. I originally had it when I shot Canon when I started my wedding videography career, and I rocked it on my Canon EOS R6 for a while and my Canon 80D. Great performer lens. So when I decided to go on this challenge, I knew that this was the lens that I was gonna search for. And when I was deciding to purchase this bad boy, I knew it was gonna be good for photo. This camera, even today, as far as a photo camera goes, it performs phenomenally. The images are sharp, they're colorful, they're punchy, they give you amazing depth of field, they give you that full frame look, they give you everything you could possibly want from a full frame camera. And since the DSLR technology has been around for a while, you're not missing much in terms of performance quality when it comes to photos. Yeah, your new cameras will be a little more sharp, a little more clinical, but this guy will give you a beautiful, clean image. It'll give you character, it'll give you punchy Canon colors, and half the time when you shoot with this guy, you won't even need to edit because it's got that true OG Canon color, which I don't believe is a true factor in a lot of Canon's current offerings. So like I said, the reason that I got this camera was so I could go out on the beaches of South Florida, the cold climate of the Midwest ski resorts, places like that, and not worry about what happens to this camera. If this bad boy gets banged on a ski lift, as long as it doesn't hit that screen, it's still gonna be working. If I'm shooting on a beach and I'm close to the ocean, as long as I don't get that lens wet or like anything in there wet, it'll be fine because it's a pro grade body. This was Canon's flagship that was priced just under $3,000 when it was released. So it's got beautiful weather sealing. It will be able to handle the nasty, wet environments. And trust me, in Florida and in Ohio for that fact, you see them constantly. Here's just a few of the candid shots that I took with this camera over the summer. To say I'm completely blown away. I love my current camera kit. I think it's fantastic, but even as good as my Sony cameras are, the a7 IV is amazing for photos. You still have to do a little bit of editing to get what you want. With this guy, you can just fire away and get exactly the image you're looking for. You can post it immediately as long as it's framed right. This camera is truly a point and shoot in the best terms of a point and shoot, even though it is a DSLR. And the autofocus on this thing is truly just still remarkable. Now, I knew this thing was gonna be good for photo. That was a no-brainer. It's Canon, for God's sake. But what absolutely blew my mind was how usable of a video tool this still is in 2023. And I shouldn't be surprised. I mean, this is the legendary Canon camera that brought 1080 HD video to the prosumer market. But it wasn't until we went out on the lake the next day that I really realized what this camera can still do in 2023. It can capture amazing B-roll. Now, granted, I do have the 35mm f1.4L lens, so that's a sharp and trusted Canon lens, but I was just blown away. I mean, I've shot with the 80D a lot, and this was really outperforming the image that I was getting in that camera, and I really do like that camera. Oh, and I forgot to mention, the other big factor of this camera that made me like pull the trigger immediately once I found one for a good price was I found out that this camera was used to shoot the season finale of season 6 of House. You know, the episode where the parking garage collapses because of the crane hitting it and House has to climb like down into the rubble to help this lady get out of her car and then has to convince her to amputate her leg because he regretted not amputating his leg. And then in the ambulance, spoiler alert, she still dies. He goes back to his apartment. He's about to take Vicodin and Cuddy shows up and stops him. What? One of my favorite pieces of TV ever, and it was shot with this camera, as well as a lot of season 6 of the franchise, and that is insane to me. So this camera, every time I picked it up, I just immediately was overjoyed because it was used for that, and it can be used for stuff like that. And I have to say, like, I had a fantastic experience shooting with this as a video camera as well. Now, a piece of technology from 2008 is gonna be a dinosaur compared to technology of today's standards, and it does have spots where it does, like, show its age. For example, the screen is not high res. Like, this screen is not gonna do you the service that your Canon 80D, your Canon EOS R, your R6, or even like a point and shoot G7X is gonna do, but it does work, it is there, and it is reliable for the most part. And the big thing with video that kind of is a major bummer, but what do you expect from a camera that was the first one to have this feature, it doesn't have autofocus for video. And you know, that's kind of a Canon quirk that they started doing with some of their later cameras, but I'm not gonna fault it for that. If you're using it as a cinema camera to get like B-roll clips and things like that, you can do the manual focus. It's not that big of a deal. So if you were thinking to yourself about picking up one of these in 2023, what are some things you should know? Well, first of all, they're a little difficult to find. They are getting older, and since they are like a cult classic camera, you will have trouble finding them. And when you do find them, a lot of the times they'll be really beat up, or they'll have a shutter count like north of 200,000. And yes, you can do an overhaul, but what I would recommend is if you're looking for one of these guys, look for a shutter count that's below 60,000 and just make sure it isn't beaten to absolute heck, because that is what's gonna get you a really good tool that's gonna last. Now, the camera that I've been using all summer, all of the buttons work, the screen has some tiny scratches, and when I purchased it, it had a shutter count just over 61,000 clicks, and I haven't had any issues with it. It's been performing really well. And also, what I'd recommend is if you're gonna look for glass for this guy and you don't wanna spend like an obscene amount of money, I would look for the Canon 35mm f1.4 lens, the first generation of it, because you'll find that one for right around $300 to $575. Seems like a reasonable estimate to what you'll be able to get it for. And if you want two really cheap lenses that are really quality lenses, look for the Canon EF 17 to 40mm. People love that lens. And the original Canon EF 24 to 105L lens is also a lens with image stabilization that will do you well with this camera. So I would highly recommend trying to grab those lenses or this lens if you want to pick one of these guys up. But I have to say, the question that has just been rolling around in my head since I got this camera in my hands is, if this is where Canon started, what are its current flagships like? Now, this camera is the grandfather of the Canon C70 and the Canon EOS R5C, and I'm really, truly curious what it's like to use those cameras as a daily driver. I truly love my current camera kit, and I'm definitely not gonna get rid of any of those cameras, but I am curious at just how those new Canon cameras perform. Maybe I'll have to pick one up at some time. Maybe. Anyway guys, if you have enjoyed this video, please leave a like or a comment. It really helps the channel, and consider subscribing if you want to see more content like this. And if you've enjoyed my recent wedding films that I posted on the channel, please go ahead and watch them. I'll have a few of them linked below. If you need a wedding videographer, let me know. And if you've liked this content and want to see more camera content, please let me know in the comments as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Later. I can get it off, I got every time.